What's up and welcome back? I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com, and I know what evil lurks in the hearts of men. I am the Shadow, or I'm going to talk about the 30th anniversary of The Shadow, which is the film adaptation of The Shadow, the radio drama, probably, I would say, super popular radio drama uh, from I don't know, way back in the time of radio dramas, like the 40s. So back in the age, the radio era, you know, this was like a serialized format show that used to be something that the family would gather around the table and listen to on the radio at night. And later on, uh, Alec Baldwin would play it in a movie. And if you really wanted context for Shadow, you could go to Cracker Barrel and buy. They used to have cassette tapes of like the old time radio shows, which was cool for me as a kid because it was a way for me to get introduced to like Burns and Allen and stuff like that on trips and on car trips, but also it's also how I got to know the Shadow. So like I have very limited knowledge, but it was always like through one of those little like cassette pairings where you get to listen to some of the Shadow. And it's been a long time. I was like a kid, and I mean, who has cassette tapes in cars anymore? So I'm old and dating myself here. This is a movie I remember watching back in the day, and then I think kind of forgetting that it exists. And I found it with audio description, and I was like, you know what? Why not? Because this is one of those things where it's like the Shadow could easily pop up again as like a remake at some point in time, and sure. So, um, in addition to Baldwin, we've also got, I don't know, people like Penelope Ann Miller, who was, I mean, her heyday was the early 90s. So, of course, um, we got Ian McKellen here in a supporting role, not a huge role. Same thing with like Jonathan Winters. Like he comes in, he's like, "What's up? I'm Jonathan Winters. I'm gonna sit here and play the uncle." Or father, or what is he to Alec Baldwin? I don't even know. Um, and like legendary actor James Hong is in this briefly as well. The dude who's been in like what, like 300 movies, something like that. It's an ungodly amount of movies. He's of course in here too. So it's okay if you forgot this ever existed or didn't know it existed. It didn't really make that big of an impact. It only made 32 million at the box office. It's not really a hit. I was asked the question in these anniversary releases, did it? No, it did not stand the test of time. No, this is one of those things. I could like if I could follow this up, they weren't released in the same year. I'd follow it up with a review of Billy Zane's The Phantom, and I would say the exact same thing. These sort of like time period movies. Really, the only one that I think anybody remembers is The Rocketeer, which sort of comes from sort of the same sort of vibe and time period and place and everything. And I think the most successful of its ilk was The Rocketeer, not necessarily The Shadow, even though The Shadow had the highest profile thing it had been adapted from, I think, arguably. um, it's just that the film, it's not fun enough. When you look at sort of what Warren Beatty had pulled off with Dick Tracy, um, you can see there that he seemed to sort of understand what what it was about Dick Tracy. Here with the shadow, it doesn't feel, it feels like they're trying too hard to adapt it to modern sensibilities, which is where sometimes you lose that. I feel like if a director now did the shadow, that they would do it in a way where it really feels like it was a complete throwback instead of just feeling like a 90s adaptation, you know, like where it feels like we found a franchise and it's never been made into a movie. Well, that's not really the point. The point is also to kind of capture a little bit of that vibe. And I feel like that there are some directors maybe who have come up that would present it in sort of like a different form and really take advantage of sort of the cheekiness of adapting a radio drama into a movie. Um, and what does that look like in, in that in that scheme? Like, why do it if you don't have a vision to do it? This one just kind of like, it just kind of feels like, well, we if you ever wanted to see a shadow movie, here's one. And it's not that Alec Baldwin's bad. It's just the plot is, well, uh so he starts off playing a bad guy, and he has an interaction where he goes super bad, super evil, and then he gets summoned to this place where he's told, you know, he has to, I don't know, right the wrongs of the world, and then and since because he's so evil, that's how he knows what the evil is that lurks in the heart of men. So his redemption is that he's, I don't know, kind of like, uh, it's like a really fast way of doing like Batman Begins, but he just sort of like becomes the shadow in like the next sequence. It's like really slow. I feel like this is like where the film sort of like loses itself. It's like, well, we don't, this is really hard to explain how he becomes the shadow. I just would have just been like, hey, he's the shadow. What's his, I don't know. He doesn't have a backstory. It's just a shadow. He's this mysterious figure. But unfortunately, we try like sort of a Batman Begins route to the whole thing where it's mysterious and he has to go train with some mystical force. And the film just opens really weakly because of it. Eventually, he gets to a point where he's sitting across. He does fight some crime and it's pretty cool. And then he sits across from his, I want to say uncle, or it doesn't feel like a father. I don't know. They just don't have that kind of like back and forth. Best friend could also be a thing. Like, he just doesn't feel like it anyway. But so he's at dinner and he sees, and he's enamored with Penelope Ann Miller, who uh, he's told she hears voices. Well, the cool thing about her is that she's sort of his little mind tricks. He uses the power of suggestion slash mind control to like tell people like, these are not the droids you're looking for. It's that kind of thing, um, which doesn't work on her. And he's like, huh? And he runs away. He doesn't know what to do. So uh, it makes her sort of like an interesting character. Like, why her? And I wish the film had stuck with that as her being this like impervious sort of like nobody can mess with her thing, because the film then uses her. There's this villain, Khan, who's like the descendant of Kubla Khan, or I want this movie to be better. Anyway, he comes in and he's got this coin and bronzonium or something. It's really, we're struggling here. That he throws at Alec Baldwin, and Alec Baldwin has some guy who tests it, and he's like, I've only heard rumors of this. It's like, from who? If it's something that you didn't know existed, then who's doing rumors? Like, oh, what is this, like adamantium? Like it would be like if our world, if we suddenly found out like adamantium was a thing and like Marvel Comics had like predicted it, and then they're like, oh my god, we found adamantium, and we're like, holy shit. The shit is real. um basically. So he finds his universe's version of adamantium in something called like bronzonium. I was like, man, that's not even inventive. It's got the word bronze in it. Um, so, but there's something about the thing that if you use it in the wrong way, it can implode, which creates like basically like an atomic explosion. He's like an atom bomb. Yes. Very quick of you, Alec. Quick. To the Batmobile. Oh, you don't have a Batmobile. You have a taxi cab driver who mysteriously shows up. Um, so then he has to spend the movie trying to stop Khan. Khan! So many great potential here for campiness. If the movie was just a little bit campier, that's the thing. I think the Phantom is a little bit campier in nature. Like Treat Williams is having a lot of fun in that movie. Um, Here, I don't know. I don't know if this is. Everybody's trying to play this way too straightforward, but yeah, I would have maybe. There's a thing where Penelope Miller's father like walks out and I don't know what the audio description is. It Joe Camel? Like it just like what did they call it? Like llama cigarettes or something? I was like, is it Camel? Did they not? Could they not have the brand? What is the? Um, it is very odd, but I don't know if it's. Anyway, the description of the thing with the billboard that actually smokes, then it like transforms into, and then it bamboozles the one guy. Well, he does the same thing to his daughter, but his daughter's the one that also can't. And I'm like, we should have kept that the constant. Like, wouldn't that have been far more interesting if at the same time, like Khan also couldn't, like his mind tricks, and then they're like, why don't our mind tricks work on you? I feel like that makes her more mysterious. Is why is she at the center of two people who have this ancient art of mind fuckery, and neither one of them can work on her. But no, it worked. Khan can do it. It's like, well, I guess that was used to show that he's stronger than the shadow. But I think it's more interesting to just to ask the question of why can't she hear it? Anyway, um, the movie, of course, moves forward to like its typical climax, and you have like a female lead in the role, and like to be the damsel in distress slash also strong, still a bit of a strong female lead. Like she would love to run into danger herself. She's very much not one of those people who's like, oh no, not me. I don't want to go in there. Don't make me do that. She's not. Um, she's headstrong in terms of being somebody who's not necessarily like capable of kicking ass. So, a weird villain, bizarre adaptation of The Shadow, and a director nobody's really ever heard of ever again, a film that nobody's really watching or talking about. All is because this adaptation just really didn't work. It could have. If there's talent in here, definitely in the cast, but it's a very weird sort of adaptation, and I kind of wish somebody else had taken a swing at The Shadow. But it does sort of feel like after Dick Tracy that they took some swings at sort of serialized adaptations, and this was just one of them, but it just didn't quite work. But it's not as bad as like some others. I really don't like The Spirit, which came out in like the 90s, which felt like it was like a knockoff of Sin City. That didn't really work for me on any level. But here at least, I would love to see somebody take another stab at The Shadow, but I want it to be somebody who has like a real specific reason to do so. Like, what is it? I'm sort of thinking about Cruel Intentions, for example, as a adaptation, a way of taking something that was previously done and finding a new way to tell the story in a way that's interesting and engaging. And if you can do that with The Shadow, I'm not suggesting making a teen version of The Shadow, but it's like that's somebody who had an idea and a version and did something different, and it ended up being this thing that lasted. A thing that they tried to adapt in TV series. They made a musical. They made a TV show again. It's like just multiple things have happened with that, which is literally just an adaptation of something else. It's not even the primary franchise. Not to mention the remakes that they've had of Dangerous Liaisons. So when you think about the potential of the Shadow, that's what I'm saying is like you have to have like a reason to do it, and like a voice and a vision and some sort of pulse behind it. This just lacks all of that. It's sort of like 2024's The Crow remake. Like, why are we here? You know? So, interestingly enough, I would love to see what Alex Proyas would have done with The Shadow, the original director of The Crow. That could have been cool. But especially considering his work on like Dark City and I think, yeah. But I think there are directors nowadays that could easily adapt. I don't think Alex directs anymore. If he is, he's not. I don't know what he's directing, but I'm going to give The Shadow, which needs some updated audio description, if we're going to watch it. Oriental didn't work for me. But an Oriental man, I was like, oof. So, ooh. I even don't use that word anymore. Try to be a little bit more specific. Anyway, but I think maybe I liked it more like when I was younger and I was able to enjoy stuff like this. And now I rewatch and I'm like, yeah, this really wasn't great. I'm gonna give The Shadow a C minus. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but it also, this one just doesn't really work on any sort of level where I would be like, yep, that was good. Check it out. So, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the other side.